Hey everyone, welcome to I'm Kovic.
And I'm Bruce Greene.
And there's bound to be a Star Wars quote in here somewhere.
I've got to save you.
You already have, Luke. You were right about me. Tell your sister you were right. Oh, I thought that was Leia's part.
Maybe that part when Luke is talking about how his video game might not sell so well?
What? He never said that.
I thought so. They cut that scene out of the special editions. That's a fucking George Lucas. Regardless, market analyst firm Superdata Research published a speculative study suggesting that Star Wars Battlefront may not sell nearly as well as anticipated.
How dare you, you son of a bitch. I'm invested. That's right. Anyway, all you naysayers and conspiracy theorists complaining on Reddit, you may actually be right for something.
Wow. That doesn't happen very often. Superdata's points are a little more profound than complaining about the lack of space battles, though. So let's run through it.
Boom, you get burned yet. Okay, first, while Battlefront isn't branded Battlefield, Superdata argues that it's based firmly in EA's Battlefield franchise.
I would agree.
And that franchise has been in decline.
Yeah, Lawrence, how so?
Okay, so it's basically looking at the unit sales of all the Battlefield branded projects that have come out over the last few years. Battlefield 3 sold about 15 million units, which is actually really impressive. Yeah. Battlefield 4 actually sold about half that, just 7 million.
Ooh, that's really bad.
Which is a huge drop-off, yeah.
Really bad.
And then it gets theoretically even worse. EA never actually announced sales data for Battlefield Hardline, which launched earlier this year.
Okay. Yeah, what's the point?
They just said it sold pretty good. We're all right with it. Yeah. But usually when they don't say numbers, that means the numbers weren't worth bragging about.
Correct.
Additionally, Superdata also offers digital sales for the Battlefield series. And they point out that Hardline, even though it started off pretty good, digital sales dropped through the floor almost immediately. So it had a strong opening week and then just completely flatlined after that.
Yeah, well, they're
not a great sign.
They're calling this one Battlefront, not Battlefield, but either way, I see the point.
Yeah.
So the lineage of shooters leading up to Battlefront hasn't been doing so hot.
Not at all.
Not the greatest sign, but also not the end of the world considering Battlefront is Star Wars branded.
That's true.
I know what Superdata is going for, but anyway, we'll continue.
Well, that's how the world works. You just slap Star Wars on it, it sells, right? You got Star Wars coffee creamer for the love of shit. That's gonna be fucking awesome.
That's a cool thing. I was at a Barnes & Noble and they had lots of Star Wars
I think they
stuff.
have Star Wars pizza, Star Wars ice cream.
If you want Star Wars on it, they'll just put it on there. It's like Krusty the Clown.
Superdata speculates the Star Wars brand may not actually be the retail savior it's expected to be.
Right, they demonstrate this by pointing to the implied failure of Star Wars Angry Birds.
I played that and I liked it.
All right, tell us more, Lawrence.
Despite the Angry Birds series boasting 3 billion downloads, which is just absurd, Rovio actually recently laid off 30% of its entire workforce.
Oh shit, wow.
So you can't really draw a straight line between they released Star Wars Angry Birds and now they're laying people off, therefore Star Wars is a failure.
Right.
But it does kind of show that a Star Wars branded project, or 2 of them at least, couldn't save the company from having to axe a lot of its staff.
Right.
It basically didn't generate unlimited revenue for them and they had to scale back.
Well, it's also kind of short-sighted to think that someone can just go out there and say, I'm going to make a Star Wars this. There's a lot of licensing things that get in the way of that, especially with Disney taking over it now. That ain't cheap. That's pretty much what makes up 70% of all of Disney's revenue. It's just licensing those fucking ears.
Yeah. Additionally, Superdata points out the branding and adjacency to Star Wars Episode 7 makes Star Wars Battlefront a likely gift purchase, meaning that it's more likely to sell physical instead of digital.
Right, mom and dad's at the Walmart and they're like, look, Star Wars, my kid, I have one of those, here you go, shut up, back to the drink tank.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's actually important because physical sales end up putting less revenue in EA's pocket.
Yeah, retailers take a 20% cut off the top in addition to other costs associated with getting physical discs in store.
Yeah, so none of those costs actually exist with digital.
Right,
well,
yeah, exactly.
Some digital platforms take a cut, but EA sells through Origin.
Yeah.
They own that, they get all the cash.
Yeah, so essentially Battlefront's branding and release window encourages sales that earn EA less revenue per unit sale because they're physical.
And there are a few other factors that may stunt Battlefront's sales performance as well. The game releases after basically all the other big hitters this fall.
That's true.
That's Halo 5, COD Black Ops 3, and Fallout 4. Are all coming out right before Battlefront.
Yeah, and that comes out November 17th.
Yeah.
It's possible that a section of prospective buyers will be too busy with those games or too broke to buy Battlefront. I actually totally agree with that. I think a lot of people are going to spend their money on like COD or something like that.
Sure.
Not have enough money left over.
Kind of crazy. And on top of that, we have yet to hear how Battlefront's core matchmaking will work. We've been told that the game will not offer a server browser, but instead use a skill-based matchmaking system.
Lawrence, what the hell is that?
We don't know. They haven't said, and probably for good reason. I think they know that whatever information they put out there now will just be misconstrued and people will go around setting themselves on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll know when the beta launches, hopefully, and that's pretty soon here, October 8th.
Oh, yeah.
But until then, we just have to kind of wonder, and that doesn't really inspire a lot of consumer confidence. Games that rely heavily on network connectivity tend to have pretty bad launch windows. Classically, Diablo 3, SimCity, and, you know, Battlefield 4, that golden oldie. People still remember that stuff, and that doesn't make them want to rush out and buy the game on launch day, or even launch week, or even launch month.
Sure.
They want to wait until the damn thing works so they don't waste a day, like, taking vacation from work for a game that doesn't work. It sucks.
Yeah.
All right, so with all that said, let's tally it all up.
Okay.
Electronic Arts CFO Blake Jorgensen announced projected unit sales of 9 to 10 million for Battlefront in the fiscal 2016.
2016!
That ends up being around March 2016.
2016!
Super Data's projections put that result on the high optimistic side of the spectrum, while the pessimistic side puts it at around 7 million.
Oh boy.
It's more nuanced than that, though.
Yeah, Super Data estimates a payout structure between EA and Disney as well. In order to license the Star Wars brand, Super Data reckons it's likely EA promised a minimum payout in addition to a royalty structure on all Battlefront sales. There's a lot of stuff happening here.
Yeah. Once you take that bite out of the projected revenues and factor in the decreased revenue from physical sales, it's looking pretty grim for EA. I think Disney's making out pretty good on this one.
That's true. Super Data estimates around 300 million in revenue on the high end for Battlefront and 200 million on the low end. That's not that much, to be honest, especially for a game that's expected to be the next, like, super hot shit.
Yup. For comparison, Call of Duty Black Ops was estimated to gross 1.85 billion.
Holy shit, that's a lot of money. Jeez.
Granted, that figure is adjusted for inflation to 2014 values, and it's also gross, not revenue.
Yeah.
Still demonstrates the gulf between own and licensed game properties.
Lawrence, do you think all this stuff is, like, these are good speculation here?
I think it's all pretty solid, yeah. I think it kind of demonstrates how many bites out of a pie can really whittle down the actual take home from a video game.
Yeah.
As far as the consequence of it, I think if EA doesn't make a lot of cash on Battlefront, we probably won't see a Battlefront 2. It's pretty easy to draw that line.
Yeah.
And we'll probably see less licensed Star Wars games out there. Or, you know, they'll go back to the negotiating table and say, if we're going to make a Battlefront 2, and if you want any licensing money from that, we need a sweeter deal than we got with Battlefront.
Yeah.
That could happen as well. But yeah, for now, I mean, from the gaming side of it, we don't have to really care about that stuff. We just have a game coming out that hopefully will be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to basically wait until EA's investor call in March 2016.
2016!
To hear anything about that.
Oh man, I can't wait for that investor call, right?
This is going to be a lot of fun. Our friend Blake Jorgensen.
In the meantime, the Battlefront beta launches on October 8th. If we know our DICE betas, we'll see stretchy neck Bothans and wobbly derp Luke Skywalkers flying all around. I can't wait. It's going to be a good time.
Awesome. It's going to be amazing. Look, I know we're talking about the game, like maybe, you know, being a little hesitant about it selling well. It's going to sell like 80 million copies. Everyone's going to buy this thing.
You think so?
I guarantee.
Well, I already bought it. So that's one.
How much did you pay for it?
$70.
Motherfucker.
And then he defends himself but kills a guy in the course.
Yeah. He goes for he does the old I'm gonna shove your nose into your brain.
And then it cuts to a courtroom, and then there's a bunch of it shows him, and they're like, your hands are a lethal weapon, and the fan is spinning, and it's like, does that make it any cooler in there? Why is there a setting for fan speed that slow?
You can roll.
I am.
Lawrence, you can roll.
You weren't recording any of that? That gold?
That was all gold about recapping Con Air.
Con Air.
It's a good movie. Steve Buscemi.